Welcome to the Enchanted Earth Podcast, where you will hear stories of nature with the power to transform our lives. These sacred stories are begging to be shared now. So listen in as my guest today shares one of their own.
So welcome, everybody. Today we have with us Melanie Lorien, and let me tell you a little bit about Melanie. She has worked with the earth for most of her life and found paganism in the early 1970s. She now follows an Ovate Druidic path. She has worked in horticulture, attended Hadlow Agricultural College in Kent, and later studied ecology and conservation at London University, where she went on to work as a woodland conservation ranger in Kent for many years. But Melanie has many gifts as well. She is one of the founding members of the Dragon Environmental Network, where she first met her husband, Wolf, successfully campaigning to save Oxley's Woods in Greenwich back in the 1980s. Melanie's also a professional heritage straw worker and the Irish representative for the Guild of Straw Craftsmen, as well as a keen earth energy dowser who volunteers as part of the Earth Energy Zoom team and the International House Healers Network. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Maureen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you have so many interests and so many wonderful, I would say, diverse parts of you, but there's this one heart beating beneath it all, and it is our beautiful sacred earth.
Gemini rising, that many, many hats.
Yes.
But always the hand in the ground.
So, as a fellow Earth Energy dowser, you and I had met up with the Earth Energy group, and I was just so excited to meet somebody so passionate as you about helping our planet. And I'm just so grateful to your presence. And when I heard all the different things you were doing in these weeks, this time, I was just amazed that you found time to meet with me. So thank you so much.
Wait for in time for you, Maureen.
So, a question that I always ask my guests is, can you tell me a little bit about the land that raised you?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I was born in London in the very last year of the 50s. My mother was a single parent, and I was a GI baby. And I was then adopted when I was 4 months old by an Irish family that lived in northern part of Kent, and they couldn't have children. They tried for years and years and years. So they adopted me. I was very sick. I had double pneumonia and was 2 months premature, so they didn't think I was going to survive. But I did. I'm still here. Thankfully. Thank you.
Yes.
And so I was adopted by this family, and very soon after, as often happens, they suddenly found that they were pregnant as well, expecting a baby, as often happens. So they had the boy they really wanted, and I became very interested in the outside. I discovered the earth and wanted to literally be outside all the time. I was dreadful. I used to even go at night and look at the stars, much to my parents' horror. They started locking the door because I'd sneak out and look at the stars at night. But I had an obsession with the stars when I was young. I was convinced I'd have been abducted by aliens, and that's why I was there, because I didn't feel anything like wasn't sound like them. I didn't look like them. I didn't have anything in common with them. So that was my way of kind of, can you come here back? Back to get me? But they never did. So I keep waiting.
Reminds me of Doctor Who. And
Oh, Doctor Who. Yes, I grew up with Doctor Who. A Star Trek. I was mad with Spock. It was my first crush. But we moved to I lived in Kent, and it's near the Crayford Marshes, which probably doesn't mean an awful lot to many people. But the River Thames, Father Thames, was always there wherever I went. But we lived on the more like in the edges of the town, so it wasn't very countrified. There was no nature there. It was just very sad. So I went to school. I went to lots of different schools. I went to 8 different schools because I was very, very shy, believe it or not. And I was always being beaten up, but I was always leaving, and I was always the new kid, so it became very, very difficult. I never settled down anywhere. And eventually I went to a convent. And so it was run by nuns, and I'm not a Catholic, as you know, I was pagan from very young. I think I was 11, I decided I was a pagan.
Oh, wow.
I know, I didn't know what I was. I just didn't know I just simply wasn't Christian. I looked up all sorts of different things like Buddhism, and I looked at Hinduism, I looked up everything. And then I decided I just loved the earth, and I didn't have a name for it. So I kind of gave myself to the earth when I was 11, really badly, but she listened, bless her. And then at 18, I did it properly when I knew what I was doing, a little bit more than I was doing. But so I this particular school, the nuns were horrible because I wasn't Catholic. I was the only non-Catholic in the school, and I was dyslexic. School was great, but I couldn't handle the nuns. So I used to run away quite often, and I'd run across the road and down the hill from the school, and there was an ancient woodland. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. So I'd hide for hours or days in that woods. I actually spent 3 days in the woods when I ran away once, and I just didn't come home.
Did you know that this podcast was inspired by my book, The Enchanted Earth? These life-affirming conversations spark joy and affirm your own magical experiences. Purchase links are below in the show notes. Now back to today's guest.
I just love the woods. And it was the only place I felt safe, the only place I felt comfortable, the only place I felt loved. And so that I spent a very long time in that woods. I then went to other schools, and it never got any better. But years and years later, I moved from the marshes, which were low down, onto halfway up a hill. This is relevant, I promise. And so it was a hill there was a little village at the top, and there was like very industrial area at the bottom. And I moved dead in the middle. So I lived on this hill, and it was right next to 2 woodlands. One was more of a park woodland, and the other one was the one where I used to play hooky when I was a kid. So I was absolutely delighted. So that's where it is. And so I used to spend a lot of time in these 2 woodlands, and I loved the woods. I loved both of them. And then in 92, we bought a house in Ireland by accident on a honeymoon, like you do.
By accident.
Well, we came here on honeymoon, and we were happy, and we were looking around, and there was all these houses for sale for peanuts. There were old houses that had been, as was almost a ruin, and they hadn't been lived in for a long time. Ours hadn't been inhabited for 40 odd years. Had no water, no electricity, no sewage, nothing. Just an old stone cottage with no windows, no doors. But we fell in love, and so I went from being halfway up the hill to now I live on a mountain. So I'm 850 foot up a mountain, which is where I'm sitting now. And I've got the most beautiful view down to right the way down the mountain, which is stunning. And it's got a whole different microclimate up here. I couldn't live anywhere else now. So I started in the marshes and ended up on the top of the mountain.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But up in the world, at least.
You're going to, that's incredible. You just go for your honeymoon, and the next thing you know, you're buying a house and you're still there.
Oh yeah, and we couldn't figure out why nobody would buy it. And we just knew it was our house. Sorry, because we didn't have any money. We were just looking, and I was remarried. So I had my little boy with me, and the minute we went down the driveway, he said, "Mommy, we're home." And I thought, oh, Dan, it's home. And my husband looked at me and said, "This is it, isn't it?" I said, "Yep, it's this." We had no idea why. We all felt the same way, every single one of us, my 6-year-old especially. And when we finally came here, we did a little ritual in the field and said, "Look, we don't have any money, but we'd really love to live here." And so we did this sort of thing, but we honestly didn't think any more of it. And then suddenly the money fell out of the sky, literally fell out of the sky. In 3 days of coming back, we had the money in the weirdest ways. Then we found out that the house is actually on a fairy path, an Irish fairy, and we have the path going down our drive, in front of our cottage, and out to 2 fairy trees in the field. So and everyone calls it the fairy house on the fairy mountain, which we didn't know at the time. And that was why nobody would buy it. Loads of people had tried, and it all fallen through and lost loads of money. For us, it was total difference. Wow. So we're guardians now. We guard the path. We guard the Anshi, as they call them in Ireland, the good people. And we have had amazing experiences with the she, but never bad. Other people have, They get very upset. So if other people, we had builders here recently, and I said to them, don't do this, and they laughed. And then we went away for 2 weeks, and we came back to very sheepish builders who said, oh my God, you were joking. Things would go missing, all machines wouldn't work. It was very, very strange. But so we love living here. It's a very special place. But we're guardians. We're like custodians of the place. We don't own it. We just look after it. Stewards.
Yes, yes. And the land was calling to all three of you. Fairies were calling to the three of you. So your son obviously is very sensitive as well as you.
He is. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And to have parents like the two of you, that's really amazing because so many children don't have that support.
No, we not believe things.
You probably didn't either as a child, right?
No, we encouraged him to. I mean, he used to literally see them all the time, and it was more difficult when he was a teenager. Obviously, he found that harder because we're in the middle of nowhere, literally. And but he comes back for holidays. He comes back and brings my grandson as well. So it's nice. He comes back. He loves being here when he's here.
Wow, beautiful. So what wants to be shared?
Well, you'd said before about curious experiences with the land. I've had many, but I suppose the one that I love the most, when I first moved up the hill, halfway up the hill, there were 2 woodlands. As I said, the one that I used to play hooky in when I was at school, and the other woodland was a smaller woodland, it's only 50 acres. The other one was 265, so they're quite different. But then used to be the one wood that was fragmented, as many woods were. Big old woodlands, then roads and houses and things were built. And so the smaller wood was much quicker to get to. And I had a dog, so I used to go there twice a day and walk my dog. And she was an Alsatian Doberman Labrador, a real bitzer that somebody didn't want. We went everywhere together, Kizzy. And so we'd go over to the woods, and there was always one place that I was drawn to. It's a very small woodland, but there was one tree that just stood up above all the others because it was so tall. And I just got drawn there like a beacon. And it's a Scots pine, Pinus sylvestris, this beautiful tree. And I spent years and years and years with Kizzy up on that tree. And the strange thing was, it was like a plateau on the top, and no one ever went there because most people stuck to the paths, and there was a big green space for the playground in the middle. So nobody usually came up there. Very steep hill. I like hills, as you know. So I'd sit up there and I'd meditate, or I'd read a book, or I'd just do my magic because I needed somewhere to do it where it was outside. I didn't like doing it inside. I wanted to be outside to work. And so I'd sit at this tree, and the tree was really strange because it came up, then it went out, and then it went up. Now, as an earth energy dowser, I now know that's an energy line that is actually trying to avoid something. Now, at the time, I didn't know that. But it was like a seat. It's like this natural seat you could sit on, and you could sit back, and it was really comfortable. So I'd sit there. For days, I'd be there and reading and collecting things, and my dog always knew where I was. She'd be charging off around the woods, chasing squirrels. And my friends, if they came to my flat and I wasn't there, they'd come to the woods and say, oh, you must be there. And that's where I was. The tree was a beautiful, beautiful tree. And I didn't really understand why, because it had like, it was like it used to be a pond around the edges of it, but there was no house. And I could never figure that out. Then many, many years later, I found out doing research when I was a ranger, because it was part of my area that I looked after, that it was called Temple Mount. And Temple Mount is very close to the Templars. It's very linked to the Templars. And all the area where I lived was very Templar kind of affected, if you like. I had looked after an Augustinian 11th century abbey, which was beautiful, but it was built by one of the Templars after he was involved with Thomas à Becket's murder. So that was his kind of penance to build that. But there was so much Templar stuff there. So I thought that was strange. But what had happened was there used to be a house there called Temple Mount. That was the name of the house. And I was sitting in their garden, which is why this very beautiful Scots pine, which was the only Scots pine in both woods. And so that was the only one there. And so obviously it was planted by someone in a garden. And then, because remember I said the river was very close?
Yes.
During the war, when they were bombing London and the Blitz, the German planes would come along and they'd drop their bombs. And then if they still had bombs, they used to drop them before they went over the sea, so they had enough fuel. So they dropped them in wherever, and they dropped them directly on the house, apparently, which is no house there. It was a direct hit. I don't know if there was anybody in there or anything. I couldn't find that out because it was so long ago. But several different people told me that. But the old people were a mine of information that I found in the archives as well. So what I was sitting was in somebody's garden in Temple Mount, which I thought was amazing because it's a very magical thing. But the tree was wonderful. I'll tell you one very funny thing that happened. I was sitting there one night because I like the stars, as I told you. So I'd sit there with the stars, and it was very, very dark. It must have been about midnight. Well, that was fine. I like the dark. Melanie means darkness. I've never had a problem with darkness. That's what I meant. I've always loved the dark. My husband calls me gloom monster because I sit in the dark quite happily. It makes me very comfortable. And I'm meditating away, and then suddenly I hear all this movement coming up the hill. I thought, that's not the dog. This is at midnight. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm imagining things. So I went back to meditating. Lots of footprints. And I could hear people talking. And I thought, who is coming up here at midnight in the pitch black? Because I have my night sight, but you would have needed a torch to get up. It was really, really steep. Suddenly, there were about 10 young soldiers. TA. They're like trainee soldiers. And they were obviously on some kind of maneuver. And I'm sitting with my back to the tree, thinking, don't move, they might have guns. I don't know who they are. And I must have been about their age or maybe slightly younger, but I could almost see was their cigarette butts that they were smoking. And there was lots of giggling and laughing, and they were actually very young, just cadets. And so I thought, I just stay still, so very, very still, they might move on. Because it was pitch black. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And so I sat there for a while. And then suddenly, one of them obviously looked around, and I must have opened my eyes. And all I could hear it was the biggest girly scream you've ever heard. And I thought, my God, if you're going to defend us, we're in little trouble. Because all he could see were these green glowing eyes in the dark. I think he must have caught the light or something. But he screamed like a complete girl. And then they all screamed and they all ran away. And I was like, and then my dog chased them. And all I could hear was my dog chasing them and barking and then screaming and falling down the hill. And I just thought, well, they're gone. And I didn't think any more of it. And it was only years later, when I was a ranger working in that same woods, I was up there one day and someone said, you do know there's a witch that lives up here. And I thought, oh, is that? And she's got a big black dog. And she scares people. And I thought, oh my God, I'm an urban legend. I didn't know it was me. I was trying not to giggle when the lady was telling me that. I was thinking, oh my goodness me. But it was like 10 years later, and I'm thinking, my God. But my dog and I were always in there, and we always sat there. And it was like a witch in the woods. And I thought, oh my goodness me, I'm a witch in the woods.
You are a witch in the woods.
I am a witch in the woods, but I didn't know it was quite so literal as that. But I just thought it was so funny to find afterwards. I wonder what those poor lads ever thought. But to say, thank goodness they never had to fight a war. But never mind, that was one thing. But with the tree, I love this tree. This tree was my best friend, this beautiful Scots pine. And we had a big storm in 1987. It was the biggest storm we'd had for a very long time. It was October the 16th, I remember, peculiarly. And I woke up in the morning and every tree was down. It was like Armageddon. And I hadn't got a television. I'd never watched television. So I didn't know there was a warning or anything. Not that I could have done anything. So I went to go and look at my tree because I thought, my goodness, my tree's the highest one up on a hill. And it's going to be the worst one for actually coming down. So I got to the edge of the woods, which was chaos. Absolutely chaos. It was like dominoes. And it was an ancient woodland, so there were really big trees, mostly oaks. And I thought, I can't get in here. My dog's trying to get in. I'm trying to climb in. I'm thinking, no, this is dangerous. Now, this is before I was a ranger, when my job then would be to keep people out of the woods.
Right.
It was my common sense, but I wanted to get in the woods. And I tried from lots of different angles. I couldn't get this wood. It was completely dog-handed. It was terrible. It was really, really heartbreaking. And I was just stunned the first day. I just didn't know what to do. It was like being in shock, total shock. Because I kept thinking, is my tree all right? Is it not all right? I can't find out. And so after about an hour of struggling and getting really kind of sad, I went home. The next day I came back, tried a different way, just as bad. And I got really angry, furiously angry. Who? I still do not know who I was angry at. But I'm not hardly Mother Nature, but I got so annoyed. And I remember this in rush of anger that I couldn't get in. And I was trying all these different ways to get in. And I just realized, nope, I'm gonna hurt myself or somewhere else. So we went back home again. And on the third day, I got there and I cried and I cried and I cried. I sobbed my heart out for an hour or more, just hugging this tree. I'm getting all emotional thinking about it. And I just hugged whichever tree was there because I kept thinking, all these trees, they're not going to come up again. They're ancient trees. And I was completely and utterly heart sore seeing these poor trees. And so my dog Kizzy and I went home and I was so depressed. At which point, a couple of friends turned up, said, how are you? We heard about the trees. How are you? Because they knew I lived in the woods. And so I made them a cup of tea and we're talking. And I'm sitting on the floor because I only had a tiny flat. And my friend Ivan knocked at the door. I used to work with him. Ivan William Robert Colebrook Taylor. Try and put that on your resume. An amazing name. But he was a lovely lad and we worked together, but he was terrified of me because he was psychic. Really psychic. He was my psychic person. If you're there, Ivan, hello. He was the most psychic person I've ever met. And he was terrified of it. And you think, wow, why have you got that? Want to share? But he really didn't understand it. He didn't want to see it. It happened to him all the time. And he came to my house. He said, I thought I'd better make sure you're okay with your tree. Because everybody knew my tree. And so I said, no, I can't get in there. I can't find out. And what was strange was he came in and he's like this, baritone, really, really jumpy and extremely uncomfortable, which he was mostly in my house because it's a strange house, lots of strange things. But he knew my house. But he was literally on tenterhooks. He was really nervous. And I made him a cup of coffee and he sat down and he was actually almost sitting on something. He was really uncomfortable. And my friends were going, what's wrong with him? I said, I don't know. So in the end, he said, I've got to go. I can't stay in here. It's too crowded. I thought, there's three of us. It's not crowded that much. He said, no, you don't understand. It's really crowded. I thought, what's it crowded with? What can he see that I can't see? So I said, well, I'll walk you out. And so the others talking. And so he said to me, they're all over your house. They're completely everywhere. They're hanging on your hair. They're climbing all over you. They're on your furniture. They're swinging from they're all over your house. I said, what are? He said, the little tree people. I said, what little tree people? He said, they all came home with you because you were so sad. And I thought, oh my God. So he could see what I couldn't see. I wish I could have seen it, Maureen. I would have loved to. But he said, they're all over your house. They got so upset with you being upset. They came back with you to keep you company. So I'm going to pray now. But so my house apparently was full of little tiny trees. It always makes me think of Groot. But I'm like, that's not how he described them. But he said they were like little kind of twig people. But they were very, very protective. Wouldn't let anybody come near me. And I thought, oh gosh. And I thought all those emotions I'd expressed at the trees, and they didn't have anywhere else to go as well, he explained to me. So he said they'd come to stay with you until they can get back in the woods. So I thought, oh my gosh. And I never saw them. I wish I had. But I was talking to them and chatting to them for days afterwards. And kept saying, we're going back now. Does anyone want to come? But it was lovely. And I wish I had his gift. But
Well, I have to ask a question that every listener wants to know is, did your tree survive?
yes. I was surprised as everybody else. I finally got in there after about a week. And other than lots of branches down, it was fine. It was perfectly okay, and it was still in one piece, unlike an awful lot of other trees. It took them months to clear up the mess. It was Seven Oaks in Kent, which is a very kind of well-known place, ended up being one oak after the storm, because that was very much devastation. We had it as bad as everyone else. It stopped everybody going and doing things. It was a dreadful storm. But for southeast England, it was unusual, very unusual. But so it was quite devastating. But my tree was fine, and I was so happy to see it, and I was so excited. And I knew that there was all these little creatures in there. I was like, hello, where are you all? But it was wonderful. And then years later, when I was a conservation ranger, because I actually got the job working in the woods where I used to play hooky from school. And the guy said, well, because I have to take you around and look at it. And I knew more of the woods than he did. So I took him and showed him all the places he didn't know, because I played in there so often. And he was like, "You've got the job." And I thought, yes. So I was the first one they employed. And I looked after this 265-acre woodland with a beautiful fossil pit with 65-million-year-old fossils in, which was amazing. And it was triple SI, which means it was very, very special. It had bird and fauna, and it had mammals. Yeah, it had animals and shark's teeth. That was the thing we had most of. Loads and loads of shark's teeth and stingrays, because it used to be really, really low down, and it was a lagoon. So you had all the exotic creatures, and there was a big spoils heap in the middle where all the scientists would throw the bits they didn't want when they came looked. When the paleontologists would come, they'd find all these interesting things to take away, and they'd leave this big pile of sand, and you'd find massive big shark's teeth, and they were beautiful. I used to say to children when they found them, "You're the first person in the whole world ever to see that tooth, because it's been buried for so long," and they were still sharp. They were incredible. So it was amazing woodland. I loved the woodland, and we had so I worked there for many, many years, but we had another storm, not as bad as the other one. And I'm in the woodland, the main woodland, because I looked after 50 different parks, but the main woodland was the one where I was based, a tertiary site, if you like, because it had lots of touristic things because of the abbey, and there was lots of other things that we did as well, talks and walks and education. And I heard that the storm was coming, and I had to empty the woods I was in before I could go and check on the other woods.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm walking around, and because I took the Land Rover, I thought, no, I'm going to get stuck with the Land Rover. I just walk. And I walk through the woods, and I'm trying to get everyone to move out the woods. So I had like a loudspeaker saying, "Little empty the woods, empty the woods." And I heard a noise of tree falling. Now, you're working in the woods, you know that sound.
Yes.
I've had trees do that here. I think, no, stop. And this tree fell right in front of me, boom, dead in front of me. I just got brushed by the branches, and I thought, 2 more steps and I'd be dead. And I thought, that's really, I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I went to take another step, and another one came from the other side and landed that way. So it was like an arrow. I was thinking, okay, I'm not meant to go that way. They're not going back that way. And I turned around, and one went behind me as well. So I was completely triangulated with these 3 trees, and I didn't get a scratch. And I was thinking, okay, thank you. Then was almost like, nope, you mustn't move any further. It's dangerous. And so I just stood there thinking, what do I do? And I heard no more movement. So I thought, okay, and I managed to get out. I could, to this day, I shouldn't be standing here or sitting here even. I literally was triangulated by these 3 trees, but nothing touched me. Literally just branches, literally just touched. That was it. And if I'd taken a step either way, I would have been toast.
Yes.
So I always felt that the trees watched over and were very protective. So they know when you love them, they know when you care about them. Have you ever doused the aura of a tree?
Mhm.
How much you love it, and the aura expands. They're very good at doing that. And while I was in this other wood, I thought, oh my goodness, my tree. And so I raced all the way over in my Land Rover when I could finally go, and I was off duty. And I went back into the woods, and I got to my tree, and there was just a stump and lots of sawdust. And I was like, oh, what happened? Because it had taken me so long to empty the other woods, because that was my job, and I couldn't leave until kind of 8 o'clock at night when I was finished, because we used to work half an hour after dark. And so I'd got there, and I thought, my tree's gone. It's just gone. And there was just a pile of dust, sawdust, and this stump. I was completely gobsmacked. I thought, my poor tree, what do I do? So I went back to the woods, the main woods, because we had a big chalk pit, and the chalk pit was where they'd put all the 87 storm trees in when there was the first storm. And so it was full of all sorts of things. And I knew that the Scots pine is very distinctive
Yes.
bark. So I thought, there's only one in both woods, I'll find it. I'll find a piece of the wood. And I spent ages trying to go find this, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was so sad, and I was so upset. I went back to my office, which was in the middle of the big woods. And on my desk was the trunk, about that big, of my tree, with a little note on from the Arborough Cultural Society. Melanie, we've saved you this. We know you love this tree. And so they'd even saved this chunk of tree, and they'd put it on my desk with a little note, and just said, we couldn't save the rest of it, but this is for you. So now in Ireland, I took it with me, and it's the altar in my pottery studio. And it's still perfect. It's never, ever dropped its bark or cracked or anything. It's absolutely as good as the day that I picked it up from the office. So it's come along island with me, and it's with me all the time. I see it every single day when I go in there.
Did they take it down?
Oh, they had to. It's fallen down. It'd already fallen down.
Oh, it's fallen down.
Fallen down quite. It crashed in many places and taken lots of other trees with it because it was so tall. But they saved the part of the trunk for me, so I still have that. So it's almost like I still have my pine tree, and it's like my best friend. It's lovely love to have it since you were like 16, and have it to 66. So it's been with me a very long time, and I love my tree. So it's a very strange thing to be so passionate about, but
No, that is so beautiful. So beautiful. Now, you brought up, I think it probably sparked some people's curiosity about measuring the energy of a tree and then sending your love to it. And so, as a dowser, can you just explain a little bit about how you do something like that?
oh, you can do that if you can dowse. You don't really need. You can dowse even with the kinesiology, only with fingers. But dowsing is really, really easy to do. And Hamish Miller has a very, very good video on YouTube, and he's got people doing that to a tree. So you actually choose the tree that you love, you like, you're attracted to. You never hug a tree before asking, any more than you hug people before asking. They like to know in advance if you're coming. I see people leaping at trees, and I think, no, ask politely. And the tree will allow you to hug it that way rather than it being quite upset about it. It's an invasion of privacy otherwise, I always feel. So you find the tree you like, and you don't have to hug it. You can actually just stand near it. And what I'd normally do is look at the tree and tell it how beautiful it is, how lovely it is, how pretty it is, how gorgeous it is, a tool or whatever. Just say something really lovely. Like you said, Maureen, you're beautiful. Everybody loves to be told something lovely about themselves, and you are lovely. But so the tree would really, really appreciate that. And trees love to be admired. Not in an ego way. It's the love. They feel the love. It's the energy.
Acknowledgement.
And so normally I'd get somebody, if I was teaching them to dowse and where the aura of the tree is first, to say, right, show me where the edge of the aura is. You could do that with a pendulum or with L rods. Or you can just feel it if you're very sensitive. And you'll feel it's maybe a couple of feet, maybe more away from the tree. And then you step back and then you send it love. You tell it it's beautiful. I even sing songs to them, poor trees. But it's something that's from the heart. You do something from the heart to the tree, and then you measure it again, and it's way out there. It expands, and you can feel it's responding to you. It's like giving you a hug in return. It's beautiful. It's a very simple thing to do. And when I used to because I taught ecology and very basic ecology. When I came over here, I started working in national schools, which are like primary schools, and I used to teach children about the trees. Teach them we used to plant trees, and we used to look at trees. And if it was in the springtime, I'd bring my stethoscope, a medical stethoscope, and I'd get all the children to listen to the heartbeat, then listen to each other's heartbeat, listen to the teacher's heartbeat, and then I'd find a tree with the sap was rising. And in the spring, if you put a stethoscope against that, you hear this as if it's like a heartbeat. And so the kids were like, oh my God, the tree's alive. So it used to make the tree more real to them. And the kids used to think it was brilliant. They'd be like, let's control the other tree. And they'd be rushing around listening to the heart of the tree. Not all the trees would do it because it's whenever the sap rises. But it was a good way of making them realize that they weren't artificial. They were alive just like we were, like panpsychism, that everything is a being and is aware. So that was a lovely thing to do with children.
With children, how about adults? They would go like wild too, like, oh my gosh.
No, the teachers didn't believe me until they'd listened to it. They went, oh my God, he does like heartbeat. So, but it was lovely. The children over here are lovely in Ireland. They're really, because they're living mostly on farms in rural areas, and they look after animals all day. They're very into nature, which is great. So I miss that as a job. I used to love doing that.
Oh,
But making kids aware, and we used to do an awful lot of environmental things with children as well, to get them to understand, to care about the trees. Because if you don't care about something, you're never going to save it.
right.
And we had lots of interesting experiences while we were campaigning. We had, I used to go into schools and give talks about all the nature, because it was very, very, Oxley's Woods was would have been part of my woods a long time ago. It's like a massive big piece of woodland that had been fragmented and fragmented and fragmented. And the locals have been fighting this for 20 years. So I got involved through the Dragon, as I mentioned earlier. And because I was a conservation ranger and I was a council officer, I went on their committee. So I do an awful lot of outreach things with kids in the schools. And I was talking about all the trees and all the plants and things and all these precious things that we're going to destroy. Because I'm going to put an 8-lane motorway through this 4,000-year-old woodland. It was the East London River crossing, Department of Transport, and we won. The locals won. The only time they've ever been beaten was the locals. And it was all local people, and it was lawyers and professional people that were putting themselves forward, and they've been doing this for 20 years. So eventually we did an awful lot of raising awareness of things. So we'd have David Bellamy, we had lots of famous people come and do things, and we had a big open day, and we got people, my poor husband dressed up as a dragon. He's never forgiven me. It was like a one of those latex suits. Yeah. And so we had this lovely, beautiful girl who was like Mother Earth, calling the dragon energy out of the woods, and the children all had to go off and find stones. And we got the children to run away, and the dragon said, you can only save the woods if you found a magic stone. So all the children rushed off and found these little stones, and I had a big cauldron, a real one, and I got all the children to put them in, and then we did a little dance around. So we did a little bit kind of slight magic with the children, and we got them to do that. And Mother Earth was lovely. She was brilliant. But my husband was a really grumpy dragon, but he's never lived that down. But I think it was very hot. But we did this little kind of like spells with the kids, which was lovely. And all the parents thought it was wonderful. We weren't doing any harm to the kids. And then afterwards, we all came together at night and all took a handful of these blessed stones for children and put them all the way around the woods as a protection. Because we figured there's nothing more powerful than child's kind of like wishes. And we did all sorts of crazy things like that when we were with Dragon, which I loved doing, which was fantastic. And I was teaching in a school one day, talking about all the squirrels and bits. A little boy came up to me, he was 10. He said, Miss, would you mind signing my petition? And I said, yes, what's it about? He said, oh, it's about the woods. He said, but it's not, it's about the houses around the woods. And I said, okay. Because obviously it was going to take an awful lot of private residences as well, because it was going to be a big motorway. And apparently he lived in this road, and they'd all big compulsory purchase. But he said that the little lady next door to him had been born in this house, had been married in this house, had had 5 children in this house, and her husband had died in that house, and she wanted to die in that house. She wasn't going. And so this little 10-year-old had completely taken over her case and had written a whole, all kind of pencil, little petition to save her house. So I said, you sign mine and I'll sign yours. We got thousands and thousands of people to sign his as well. Who said, there's the 2 petitions we want you to sign. So everybody signed up. So they were bombarded by all these people. And we did all sorts of crazy stuff. But it just shows that if you really, really try, you can change things. People always say, oh, I can't do anything about it. But you can. That ancient woodland is still there. And it hopefully always will be.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's such a great story, Melanie.
Oh,
I love your little.
It's hard work.
I love your ceremony with the children. It's so true. Their innocence and their curiosity and imagination and sense of wonder is just having that beautiful energy.
And they're so powerful, their energy, because they. I was going to tell you about the other tree in my woods, wasn't I? Do we have time?
Yes, and the Dryads too. We were going to.
The Dryads too. Well, I met a lovely man called Dusty Miller. I used to the cult fairs and events in London, and there was this lovely man called Dusty Miller. Dusty Miller the 13th. He was the 13th generation of tree shamans.
Tree shamans. Wow.
Tree shamans. Yeah. He passed away maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Dear, dear friend. I love Dusty. He was the first person to ever visit here, where we live. We have no address. He just turned up. He found it. He said he asked the trees where we lived. And I didn't even know he was coming. He just turned up on my doorstep one day. And I said, how did you find it? He says, oh, the trees know where you live. And I thought, oh my gosh, we didn't even have a postcode or anything. So he's an incredible guy. He was the 13th, and his family always worked with trees. Do you know Terry Pratchett?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's supposed to have worked with Terry Pratchett as well. Anybody who's a Terry Pratchett fan. The We Free Men series, he was supposed to have used that as the basis for where Dusty lived. According to Dusty, I believe him, but you never quite know with Dusty. But it was very reading the book and then knowing Dusty, it made a lot more sense what he was saying. But the whole he worked on. I'll show you some. Is that okay?
Sure.
This is that show okay?
Yes, perfect.
The lovely twist of bottom. This is a healing wand I bought from a long time ago, so it doesn't show in this background. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with it until I became a house healer. And then I thought, oh, that's what it's for. And I use this to heal people's houses. And inside what basically it has, dryads are like the energy of the tree. And they're not, they come from the Greek, but it's not the same, because the Greeks always saw half-naked girls in the trees. Sadly, they're not, gentlemen. Boy, you're excited. But they would like the energy of the tree. And it can often be like a copse of tree would be one dryad. At the bottom of our lane, we have 5 very mature beech trees, which recently fell down in a storm, which again broke my heart. They dominoed, which was so sad. But they were one dryad. They weren't 5 different dryads. They were like, the group was a dryad. And the dryad is like the energy of the tree and the spirit of the tree. And they're very, very ancient. The trees have obviously been living in the same area, and they share their knowledge, as we know, from the World Wide Web, or Woodweb. And so what his family learned to do was to actually ask the tree to be given a part, like a clone. And so the dryad, I have several of them. This little fellow here is my wand when I do anything hocus pocus, with lots of lovely little runes on it, which are Dusty's runes, so I don't understand what they are, but he tells me they're very good. And I also have this one, which is my favourite. You can't really see this very well, but this is a palm wand. And so you'd use it. You'd go into Tesco's or something like that and do magic, and nobody would even know you're doing, because you couldn't see it. But I've never used it for that. I'm a tarot reader, so I use it for my tarot. And it tells me things. I'm working away, I'll hold it, and I just rub it and hold it in my hand, and it'll suddenly give me pictures. And I was reading for a lovely lady yesterday, and all these pictures came into my head, and I was like, what about this? How did you know? I thought, I didn't. It's my tree. So it's almost like you have a friend. It's a really strange thing to explain, but it's how can you say? It's like having a partner, a tree partner. And trees, they're so much more than we do. So what he used to do, he used to ask the tree, and then he'd ask where exactly you could cut. And he said there was live wood, which was living. There was dead wood, which is just what you put on your fire. And then this wood, which is actually dryad wood. So the dryad would almost clone itself into a section of the tree. And then you had almost like part of the tree with you. And it sounds really strange, but anyone who's ever had any of Dusty's work will tell you that he was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I have used these for years, and I would never, ever use anything else now. But with the trees, you have to have a very good relationship with them. You can't just do that. You can't just cut the tree and chop a piece off. So you have to ask them, and they have to agree to it. But he says because the trees aren't mobile, and we are, it gives them mobility. Yeah. And this one has been all over the world. It's been all over the place. It comes with me wherever I go. So they're upwardly mobile trees. And it's not quite like Lord of the Rings, where they take half an hour or half a day to say hello and half a day to say goodbye.
Oh my God, that scene is just incredible. Oh,
They're lovely.
Yeah.
I love it when they start fighting. I love the trees. But actually, to meet a real life shaman, and Dusty was wonderful. He took me around the woods, and he taught me so many different things. So I worked in the woods, and he would help me with trees if they were damaged. He'd help me with how to actually talk to them, how to work with them. He was an amazing man, and I miss him every single day. He's very special.
Wow. I'm going to share a photo now, how Dusty explains the tree dryads.
Yes, well, that's a lovely picture. He said they don't look like trees. That's the difficult thing. People imagine they look like trees. But there was one other story I was going to tell you if we've got time.
Yes.
The sleeping dryad.
Yes, I want to hear.
Well, I grew up hearing that story when I was a kid. It was like a local legend, not the same as the witch one. And there was always supposed to be a tree with a face in this wood. This is the one that I ended up looking after. And I heard this story when I was a kid. I heard it from lots of people. And I just think, oh, it's very sweet. It's a little kind of urban legend. And you didn't hear more of it. And they said, oh, no, see, whenever the tree dies with the face, it comes up somewhere else in a new tree. And I thought, oh, that's convenient. You take it with a pinch of salt. You're thinking, yes, of course it is. Then one day, because we had to do a lot of conservation chainsaw, part of what would have been there originally to keep the manage the woodland. And so had lots of wood left, so we made some bins and made benches, and we made lots of different things with the wood we cut. And I'm hacking away with my machete to clear a space, like you do, to put this new bin I just made. And I was like, that'll look lovely then. And I'm merrily going along, and I suddenly look up to see this face looking at me at the same level I am. I'm on my knees, and it's right in front of me, 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And I thought, whoa. And I thought, no, I'm seeing things. So you pinch yourself, thinking, no, it's still there. And I reached out, and it's bird that happens on a tree, but they're not usually that low, and they're not usually that perfect, as you'll see by the picture.
Yes.
I thought, my goodness me, it's the tree with the face. And so I called the other ranger I worked with, Ken. I said, Ken, come look. He's like, oh, what weird things are you looking at now? I said, I found the tree with the face. No, you haven't. He went, oh gosh, it's the tree with the face. He was stunned. He was like, it's the tree with the face. He said, I remember that when I was growing up. He remembered hearing it, but he was much older than I was. He said he remembered hearing it when he was a child. So it'd been a story for a long, long time in the woods. And we thought, this is strange. And so I started to take pictures of it and show people. And there was a lovely lady called Kathy that used to walk through our wood. She was blind. And she had Fudge, this very round Labrador. It was, he never got a lot of exercise. So she used to say to me, can you walk me around the woods? And so I said, Kathy, I've got something to show you today. You're going to love this. And so I took her to the woods. I said, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I want you to feel. And so I got her to bend down, and she put her hands, and she went, oh, it's a face. She could tell. And she was like, oh my God, it's a face. And she was in tears because it was just so magical. It used to have this really weird effect on people. It used to literally bring people to tears. It was a magical tree. It had this beautiful image. And I was really concerned because we were very close to a place called Thamesmead, where we used to get an awful lot of trouble from, because it was on the edges of like a very difficult estate, let's put it politely. And so I'd be very careful when I took there, because it was in the woods, it wasn't on the edges. And the children loved it. We used to go there all the time. And I managed to get the whole story from all the old people I spoke to. So I wrote the whole story out. And I'd get the children to come, especially if there were school groups, which was lovely. And they'd come along and say, right, they're going to learn about the wizard in the woods. And the story was that this wizard had been there for hundreds of years, and he was like Merlin. He just didn't ever, or Gandalf. And he looked after all the birds and the animals and the trees, and he was really kind. And he was always, whenever there was a problem, the animals would come to him and he would cure them. And then one day a young man came to see him, and he said, and he had this massive staff that he uses as healing staff, like my Dryad, but it was a proper staff. And he said, I want to learn to be a wizard too. And so the wizard said, oh, that's very sweet. He said, but I'm fine. I don't need any help. Excuse me. And so he said that, no, he wanted to learn. Excuse me. And then he said, well, let me at least learn to use your staff. He said, no, the staff is very special. You have to know how to use it. And the guy was very, very annoyed, and he kept harassing him. And so he said, let me look in your eyes and let me see what kind of person you are. And he looked into his eyes, the windows of the soul, and he saw that it was greed and avarice. It wasn't anything to do with love or caring for the woodlands. And so he said, I'm sorry, I can't teach you. You're not ready yet. Maybe in a few more years, you might mature a bit more. And the boy got very angry. He said, I don't believe you're a wizard. I think you're a fraud. I don't think you can do magic at all. Teach me to do some magic. Show me to do some magic. And he said, well, I bet you can't even do magic yourself. And he said, well, I can. He said, I bet you can't turn yourself into a tree. And so the man said, well, I can, but I don't really want to. He said, I bet you can't do it. If you can do that, I'll believe you. So he did. He stood there, and he grew roots, and he grew branches, and he grew twigs, and then the The staff he was holding fell out of his twigs and landed on the floor. The boy took the staff and ran away. And he's still there. That's the story. It's a lot more complicated. But so he was still trapped in the tree.
Wow.
And we used to get the children to do this. We used to stand there and feel your roots and feel your trees. And the kids would be so excited. And then they'd all give they'd ask permission and they'd give the tree a hug. And they loved the tree. It became a very special thing. And so that was a lovely little thing for the children to do, because it was just so gentle. And I was doing one of my chainsaw exams, and I was a bit nervous, and I'd been doing like an event with the children. And they said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, I'm just a bit nervous. I've got this big exam tomorrow, and I've got to be able to do whatever." And they went, "Can we go and see the tree, please?" And they couldn't go on their own because it was right in the middle of the woods. And I thought, "No, I'll take you there. Please, 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 come see the tree." So I walked them up to the tree, and they said, "You can go away now." I thought, "Why?" Just turn around and not look. And I thought, okay. I thought I'd be very careful, because they're about 10. I couldn't leave them on their own. So I politely gave them my back, and they started doing whispering. And I said, "We can go home now, thank you." And I took them back, and I thought, okay, today we're talking to the tree. And that they often wanted to go up to see it, but it was very, very strange where they wanted to do it. And the day after, when I came back, they were all waiting for it outside my office. "Did you pass?" I said, "I did." "The tree said you would. We asked the tree to make a wish." So it became this thing that people did. The kids loved the tree. So it became this wonderful thing with the children, because it was like the wizard was still there. So it was, whether it was true or not, it was just lovely. And then one day I came to work. I used to start at 7 in the morning in the woods. And I came in at 7 to find all the arboricultural trucks outside my office. And I thought, well, they're not doing any tree work today. That's one time of year. Because there's certain times they can work and sometimes they can't. And I got out of my office, and they're all waiting in my office already. I'm thinking, what's going on? They said, "We made your tea. It's sweet. Sit down." I thought, oh God, what? I said, "Has somebody died?" He said, "Nearly." I thought, what? Has there been an accident? I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, "Your tree, someone's attacked your tree." I said, "You're joking." He said, "No." He said that we had these Chubb security guards who used to go around the Abbey at night, because it was like a protected monument. And they'd heard all this hacking and slashing in the woods in the dark. And so they'd gone and scared all these lads off who had kind of saws, and they were taking the face off the tree. Why? You ask yourself. It wasn't doing anybody any harm. And I was very careful who I took there. So I presume it was somebody's older brother who had heard about it and that he'd destroy it. It used to never, ever make any sense what people did. But so I was taken up there to see that it really patched up with all this weird paste and things. And they said they've tried to saw one of the eyes off completely, and they've attacked the nose, and it was horrible. And I was like, why would you ever do that? It was something just so beautiful. It didn't need to be damaged. But they said, "No, okay, we've got it in time. We think we might be able to heal it." So it was looking beautiful. And then afterwards, it looked more like a pirate with like patched eyes. But it was because it was Castaneta sativa, a sweet chestnut tree, which the Romans brought over with them. They had a whole massive sweet chestnuts. They were beautiful. They're the ones you roast at Christmas.
Yes.
And because I was so upset about it, but the leaves are really long. They're about that long, and they're serrated. And so when I went there one day, one of the kids said to me, "You've got to come see this, miss." I said, "What?" Because I hadn't been in the woods. I just got there. And there was one leaf coming out of its mouth like a tongue. And it was literally like sticking its tongue out at whoever it was. And I just thought, yes. And it healed. It healed very, very, it wasn't as beautiful as it used to be. But it's like, I've been through the wars and I'm still here. But this big tongue, and all the kids were like, "Oh my God, he's sticking his tongue out. This is so exciting." It became so animated, this tree, that everyone referred to it as the tree, not as a tree. It was the sleeping Dryad. And it was just a beautiful tree. So that was lovely, because everybody rallied round and everyone came to see it. And everyone was kind of, "I'm so sorry." But it survived, and it's still there. It's still there now, looking much older.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that if anything does happen to it, it will pop up somewhere else as a brand new tree.
Yes. Wow. Your stories are just so beautiful. Every single one is a gem. And I know this is just touching the tip of the iceberg. I think we should talk about having you back again sometime in 2026 to tell us a little bit more. I've just really loved your stories, and I want to, before we close, I want to ask if you have anything else you would like to close with.
Oh, goodness. My husband jokes that when I walk up the lane, I spend all my time saying hello to all the trees because I know them all by name and by nature, and they've all got interesting aspects and personalities. I would encourage people just to be more observant, to be more aware of what's around them, and make friends with their environment, because most people are not even, they'll drive past it and they won't even notice something. Whereas in Ireland, everyone describes how to get by pubs. I describe how to get somewhere by trees, which doesn't really help if nobody knows what the tree is. There's a big tree on the left and you turn that the ash, and then it's the beech tree on the right. But that doesn't help because most people don't even notice them, which is what I find so hard. And they do so much. They give us everything. They give us the air we breathe. They recycle everything. They are so powerfully loving. And they do so much. When I used to work in schools, I used to say to the children, tell me all the things in this classroom that are made of wood. And they get so carried away because everything was, from the floor to the windows to the rulers to the pencils. And we talk about all the different things that the tree gave you as its wood, and how we should plant more trees. And plant trees, that's very important. I used to collect all the native seeds and I used to bring them into schools, and the children would plant them. And then they'd take them home and plant them at home. But when they finished their last year, I used to grow all these native trees, and they'd be given one as a present. That was their leaving gift, would be a native tree that was hand-grown and organically grown. And so I bumped into so many mums who said, do you know how many trees we got in your garden? In my garden? Because I've got like 6 children, they've all got these trees. But little forest. And my husband said after 20 years of doing that, there must be a whole forest of trees out there that the kids have planted. And the kids, if I see them, they're like, my tree's still doing this, and my sweet chestnut's doing this, and my conker tree's doing, and that it's something that we never, ever forget. And there's one little thing I will tell you, that the Celts used to plant a tree when a child was born.
Yes.
And sometimes they'd take the little umbilical, and they'd bury it or hang it on the tree. And then you had to look after the tree as if you looked after the baby or looked at the child. And technically speaking, you would be buried under that tree afterwards. But I just think it's one way of linking you with the trees. Isn't that beautiful?
It is beautiful.
Children they understand trees. So if you have children, get them to plant a tree.
Yes.
Go and volunteer and help clear up another woodland. There's loads of things you can do, but positive things. This is our future. The trees are going to be here to look after us.
Yes. Oh, that's perfect words to end with. The trees will look after us. We just need to look after them.
Yes, and respect them. Thank you, Maureen.
Yes, thank you so much, Melanie, for being with us today. And again, I definitely would love to talk with you sometime next year to explore a little bit more. And I just want to do a little shout out to all of the people that are watching or listening. If this resonated with you, if this brought up any ideas or memories for you, I'd love to have you write that down in the comments and we will respond. Please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, have an enchanted day.
Thank you, Maureen. Bless you.
Thank you for being a part of the Enchanted Earth podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so that you'll know when we publish another inspiring episode. Check out my book, The Enchanted Earth, available wherever online books are sold. Thank you and have a magical day.